why wouldn't I raise VC money? Well, I've offended all the VCs already. So they're not going to invest in me.
If you're going to
They
make
invest
them
more.
money, they'll come
Yeah.
back. Yeah,
They invest more when you offend them. Don't you know
It's
that?
true. If you take venture capital, you have a boss. They have some level of control on your business. For example, when I sold my last business, I had one investor who didn't like the head of M&A. So all of a sudden, my life and the life of my team is being dictated by this like random beef. And I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Founders in Arms podcast with me, Immad, co-founder and CEO of Mercury.
And I'm Raj Suri. I'm the co-founder of Lyft, Presto, Tribe, and Lima. And today with us, we have Greg Isenberg as a guest host. He's a thought leader in the field of founding companies and leading companies. And so we thought it'd be really interesting to have him today. He has a very unique perspective on how to build great companies. You know, he's been a friend of mine for a long time. And Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I will say I haven't gone on someone's podcast in a while, but when you asked me to come on the podcast, I was like, oh, it'll be an excuse to catch up. So yeah. I'm treating this as we're hanging out.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
I guess Raj is really stacking up his companies. He's on four in his bio now. Yeah. How many companies are you running right now, Greg?
We have 5 companies out of our holding company. Yeah, not as successful as some of those. Some of those are some heavy hitters. No general theme, just a general philosophy on how to create the businesses.
So that was going to be our second topic. I think the topic of the week has been founder mode. Paul Graham kind of dropped a pretty good, or at least very mimetic blog post, I think on Sunday last week. Everyone's been talking about it. Yeah, the idea is even as you scale your company and you bring in kind of experienced managers and execs, you still kind of keep a founder mode, and that's how some of the best companies are running. He was inspired by Brian Chesky, but I would say kind of Elon Musk, Toby over at Shopify, and a lot of other, obviously Steve Jobs was actually the example he had in the post as well. But a lot of founders have run this. I guess like when you both think about it, like did that post resonate with you? Were there parts that you disagreed with? What were your thoughts?
So I was transported back to when I was 19 or 20 years old. I had the opportunity to meet with one of the biggest founders in the apparel space. So multi-billion-dollar company, you've heard of it, you know the founder. I just don't want to say his name. He had taken back his company. And I was in this room because my buddy was working at this company, and it was 1 a.m, and he was with all his executive team. And it's like, what are people doing at 1 a.m, working on their computers? I asked him, I was like, to be honest, I'm honored to meet you, sir, but like, what is happening here? And he basically explained founder mode without saying founder mode. His way of describing it was I got to $5 billion market cap. They hired all these people out of Stanford and Harvard. And before I knew it, it was a company I couldn't recognize. And I think the way he described it was everyone was eating Chipotle when, we used to go out for, the Cheesecake Factory, and that little thing changed everything. Anyways, the point is I saw that, and I think that there's something really true to this idea of founder mode, for better or for worse.
Yeah. I definitely resonates with anyone who's built a company, to a certain scale, because you bring in execs, and the execs start pushing back against the founder, right? And the investors start pushing back against the founder, and the founder's like, "Am I crazy? Like, am I just wrong about various things? Or they're telling me that I don't know this stuff, but I thought I did, And so it strikes a chord with all founders who have built a company to a certain scale, because we all have dealt with a lot of pushback, and then it takes some experience to figure out how to manage that pushback, right? And I think the experience you learn over time is that if people push back too much, it's probably not the right fit. It's not you're the problem, probably they are the problem, and so you have to manage them out of the business, because because like if you feel strongly about something and someone else continues to push back and you feel it's really critical to your business, it's it's not necessarily that your instincts are wrong.
I think pushback is part of it, but it's almost the way you operate changes. I had like a couple of really interesting conversations over the years. I won't name who, like, both successful unicorn founders. One said, and this really struck with me because I thought it was like an insane way to run a business, but he said he's got like 10, 12 execs, and every 2 years they leave. And his main job is replacing these execs. Like, that's literally what he does. And I was like, how can you run a company like this? Like, that's like, there was definitely, at that point, I was like, oh, maybe this is what grown-up companies do. Like, you're basically just like replacing execs, and that's your job as a founder, is like continuously replacing execs, which seemed like really like a faulty way to think about it and not a great way to run a company. And I had the second conversation, this one's a little more recent, where this founder was like, hey, I've got a bunch of execs here. I don't have anything to do at my company, so I'm going to just like, he's like chilling and investing at his own company that he made. And I was like, I'm pretty sure this is how you run it to the ground. But I mean, there is an element, right? Like founders work really hard, but if you go and like hire people and delegate completely, like what are you doing? I have, I don't know, 8 execs that report to me, but there's no way that is a full-time job. I mean, maybe if I was just continuously replacing them, that would be a full-time job, and I think that was one of the core parts of this blog post that resonated with people. It was like giving them permission to do the thing, especially I think founders early on, especially have a lot of imposter syndrome. They're like, I've never run a 700-person company. Like, what the hell do I know about this? So it kind of gave them permission to like follow what I think is common sense. And I think that's why it kind of resonated with people.
For sure, yeah. And this concept of micromanagement, right? Micromanagement is like this word that's used around a lot, I think, to make founders feel bad about themselves when they're getting involved in various aspects of the business. And there is some level of micromanagement that is bad, but there's others that are actually very important. So you have to differentiate those two things. And the word is tossed around a lot, and it's kind of a dangerous word.
My biggest takeaway, honestly, of the whole article wasn't that this new concept of founder mode was created, but got me thinking about what other modes are out there besides founder mode and manager mode. Like, there's probably other modes that we're not thinking about.
There's definitely like a grumpy engineer mode.
Yeah, that was the vibe I was getting. Yeah, that 100%. There's a bunch of modes. Like, what do you guys? You guys have been in a bunch of different companies.
Investing and resting mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do. There's this one mode where like a few people at Mercury have this, which is just like, I don't want to deal with stuff. I just want to work, right? It doesn't have to be an engineer, but it's like often engineers or designers or whatever. They just don't want management. They don't want to deal with like meetings. They just want to get, and those are some of the best people actually. They don't necessarily like, I guess, scale from like a traditional sense, but they're just getting stuff done. And like, that's just all they care about. And I appreciate that. I mean, that's like, in another world, I could be that person.
So that was my big takeaway. And I met right after, actually, it was Sunday when I read that, and I was like, okay, first thing Monday morning, I'm going to meet with my HR person. Then I realized it was Labor Day. So it was Tuesday morning, I meet with my HR person, and I was like, we need to bucket people's modes when we look at hiring people. There's nothing wrong with someone being like, I'm coming here to be a senior IC designer, and I'm only going to be here for 2 years, and then I'm going to move on to the next thing. It's okay, but we need to like really do a better job at onboarding people, bucketing them into the 5 or 6 or 8 different modes that we think there are. And then after 3, 6, 9, 12 months, be like, okay, are they this mode, but they're really founder mode?
So one thing I kind of disagreed with the post, and it sounds like, Greg, you also disagree, is, I don't know if you went all the way to the footnotes, but there was a footnote that explicitly said that like execs and managers like will try to take founder mode for themselves, but like that was like not the point of the post. I think it said something like this. I actually think like, and I actually posted this to the whole company. I was like, hey, I want everyone to be in founder mode, right? Like I can't individually do it all. Like it's a big company, and I actually think a lot of the elements are like ownable with everyone, and obviously founders have a little bit more authority and gravitas when they like go in there and like can be more decisive. But I think everyone should do it. I think even IC should be in founder mode, and they should go like wake up and go, okay, well, how do I like solve this problem and do whatever it takes to do it? Would you agree with that, or do you think actually like PG has a point and then only founders can be founder mode?
Yeah, his point was that founder mode concept can be abused, and I totally agree with that. And I've seen it go badly. Like I've seen like people in the company come in and like they're too founder mode. They're too founder modey. They're doing other people's work, so people feel like they've like lost ownership of their own work, and without communication, just jumping in left and right, communicating way too harshly, when it wasn't appropriate. And so I've seen, and then it just turns everyone off, and like it actually creates real problems within companies. So I actually think there is a problem with too much founder mode in a company. And
well, I would say that actually ties into bad founder mode. I do think there's a level, like I think, and I don't know what the right answer is, because like if you're just not that good at founder mode, right? Like if you interpret it as like I'm gonna do everything, right? There's like this hero mode. I don't know. I've seen this like with, I mean, there's plenty of like bad founders as well, right? Like they're not bad, but like they don't know how to scale. They don't know how to manage. Like maybe they, just because you know how to like set up a 3-person company and raise a Series A doesn't mean like how to scale a company. So there's definitely like bad elements of it. So I mean, I guess I'm like being a little unfair, but I wouldn't say that's too much founder mode. I would say that's bad founder mode.
Well, you need to have really clear guardrails, right? And I think you gave this speech to your company. I think you very clearly defined it. Like, what does founder mode mean? You might also want to define what founder mode doesn't mean, right? So, like, and like making very clear, like, what are the, for me, like communicating respectfully is a very important thing. Like, you can be direct, but you have to be respectful. And I've seen like crazy things happen on Slack channels, like public Slack channels, like people are like throwing bombs left and right, and everything just like melts down, when that happens, and then the CEO has to come in and like fix things.
I think an important part of it, and like whenever I founder mode something, I try to spend a lot of time understanding it first. Like I have like steps to founder mode, which is like, hey, identify a problem. Now go spend like the week speaking to as many people as possible. And I think this was the only real characteristic kind of in the blog post, which is like you speak to everyone at every level. But I think that's so important to make sure you have all the context, because I think it's very easy to go like, I know the answer based on like a very small snippet of information, and you haven't actually like gone and understood like what's the other perspective, what is everyone's perspective, and you just jump, you hear one thing and you're like, what the hell are we doing, let's go fix this, and you just jump all over it, and then you end up like actually coming in with like and you actually like also destroy people's trust in you as well, because people are like, okay, this guy's like crazy, he's not actually like very competent, like we won't listen to him the next time, which I think is important to not lose that kind of trust element.
It kind of says manager mode is a bad thing, like in PG's post, which I don't like this dichotomy between like founder and manager necessarily, because I think founders need to learn how to be good managers as well, and I think that unlocks superpowers for a founder.
I think it was really harsh to managers, and actually I think it said they're like lying something.
Yeah, C-suite,
something.
the best.
I think
liars,
that's why it was like also kind of like thought provoking, because it was kind of harsh. But yeah, I think everyone should be a better manager and should be a better founder mode person.
I read that post and then I realized who's saying this post. It's Paul Graham, the guy who is running Y Combinator. His job is to attract the most interesting founders and accelerate those founders. So it's kind of like, take it with a grain of salt. Of course, he wants more founder mode type people. Doesn't want more managers. He's okay to offend. Like he's a smart guy. Like he picked an enemy. He picked one enemy, and that enemy being managers, and that's a okay enemy for him to pick because he's not in the business of training managers. So it's like the classic, don't ask a barber if you need a haircut. Like they're gonna tell you need a haircut.
I also think like something like Y Combinator cares a lot about high variance outcomes. Like they don't care about a medium success. They care about like someone going crazy in founder mode, building a $10 billion, $100 billion company. So I think there is like the reason VCs are a little bit happier with like manager mode is because some founders like do need guardrails, like they need like they built something and then they will like drive it to the ground if you don't bring some like execs that like can know how to scale it. So I think like it is like and that's why VCs came out kind of a little against founder mode on Tuesday. But yeah, I think incentives do drive like this to some extent.
The last time I had an interaction with Paul Graham, I think the words were, he called me silly, I think were the words. And the time before that, he called me stupid. So I did graduate from stupid to silly. And that's
You're going to get to doofus soon.
I don't know. Yeah, it's right. The night is young. I might get to doofus by tonight. And the reason is I tend to pick fights sometimes with VCs, and I think he sees that as I'm on his territory sometimes, so that he'll see something and he'll kind of poke in there. So I'm not surprised that like he knows. I just want to say Paul Graham is incredible at creating content. Like we don't think of him as a content creator. We think of him as an entrepreneur and investor, but the guy is incredible at having a narrative, picking an enemy, and just the way he structured his post. Like the fact that he picks Brian Chesky, and everyone knows Brian Chesky, and he talks about, you felt like you were in the room there, and then he talks about Ron Conway, one of the most famous investors of all time, who's known to take notes, and even him wasn't taking notes. Like this is a guy who is like the Picasso of content creation, and so I'm not surprised that this post went as ballistic as it did, and the fact that he ruffled some feathers along the way.
Yeah, he's an amazing writer. He is truly probably the best writer in tech. Yeah, he knows how to get a rise out of people. He's done it many, many times. And one thing, he is not a VC though. And I think from your perspective, I don't think he's, when you talk to him, he is very critical of VCs. He is extremely, extremely critical. So he is not like, he doesn't see himself as a VC. I don't think Y Combinator sees themselves as VCs, even though they are in that business. They actually, from all my interactions, they actually they understand VCs are someone, to do business with, but not to be necessarily trusted. And that's kind of my view of him. I will say PG is not an experienced manager. And it's been a long time since he's managed a company, and someone like Immad is like way more experienced at this point than PG ever was.
Also, VMware wasn't like that big a company, right?
50 people, when they sold. Yeah.
I mean, still he's seen a lot. Like I think, being in
from conversations,
you see a lot and you talk a lot. But yeah, he's definitely hasn't managed a large company. Maybe this is a good point to pivot. I guess we'll overrun a little bit on this podcast. Both of you have decided not to run a VC-backed company. I mean, Raj has previously run a VC-backed company. I think, Greg, you've also raised from VCs previously. Yeah, whereas I've done, I guess now, 2 VC-backed companies. We had an interesting conversation about this previously. So I guess but I'll ask the first question, both of you. Do you think you'll never raise money from VCs, or like you would be open to it, but you just haven't done it right now and you don't need it right now?
So actually, Greg is actually my inspiration. So, a conversation I had with Greg, after I left my last role was really kind of eye-opening to me. I didn't realize it could be so good to, run a company without VC. So, Greg, why don't you explain your philosophy?
Well, first of all, why wouldn't I raise VC money? Well, I've offended all the VCs already. They're not going to invest in me.
If you're going to make them money, they'll come back. Yeah.
They invest more when you offend them.
Did you see what they did with Adam Newman? They'll keep coming.
It's true. And it's actually funny you mentioned that. Like just this morning, I'm fighting off this one VC who is not taking no for an answer. Like he started on LinkedIn, then he went on email, then I'm in a group text with him. It was added, and it's just like the more you say no, the more they want it.
Well, VCs are supposed to be contrarian, so
exactly. I will say, so I've started and sold 3 VC-backed businesses in my career. I've been around VC-backed businesses. I was an advisor to Reddit. I was an advisor to TikTok, and I've invested in 50 plus companies. And I will say this chapter of my life around building a holding company, uh, building cash flowing businesses. Now we're starting to buy businesses. So using our cash flow to acquire businesses. This chapter has been the most fulfilling chapter yet. And it's been the most fun. And I've been able to do it without venture capital. And I think that's a key part of it. The reality is if you take venture capital, you have a boss in some way. Like you have someone that you have to report to. And if you have someone that you have to report to, as far as I'm concerned, you have a boss. Like the definition of a boss is you have someone you need to report to. They have some level of control on your business. For example, when I sold my last business, I had one investor who, he was one of our larger investors who didn't want us to sell the business. We're in the south of France. They weren't signing the paperwork. But at the end of the day, like they didn't want to sign the paperwork. And I found out why they didn't want to sign the paperwork. That guy didn't like the head of M&A of WeWork, which was the company I sold it to. They had like a personal disagreement.
Yeah.
Just like So all of a sudden my life and the life of my team is being dictated by this like random beef that exists between this guy in the south of France and this other guy who's also in the south of France, by the way. And I'm just like, I don't want to do this anymore. So, I'll talk about two things, the freedom and the, if you actually just do the numbers, like, and you calculate, how much you can make and how well you can do, I don't need to be a billionaire. Right now we do 8 figures in revenue a year. But we make like mid to high 7-figure profit. That's a decent business. And if we can just grow every year 20 to 30% conservatively, like just do the math. That compounds like crazy.
Oh, so those are the two things, freedom and cash.
Freedom and cash.
And stress, right? You mentioned this point to me, like raising VC capital is stressful, right? And probably the same thing as freedom to some degree, but like there is a element when you talk to VC, when you raise another round. Immad, you've been through this, where like you get rejected for like really random reasons, and like it oftentimes doesn't make sense, and then you're always wondering like what's your valuation and how do I calculate valuation? Like all these things are just taken out of the mix when you're when you don't raise VC dollars. And what I really like about it, having done this now, is like you can really have a maniacal focus on product and users, which for me as an entrepreneur is the best part about running a company, right? It's the best part is just building great products that you love for users who you care about, and caring about your team as well, and helping your team do well. So another thing with this non-VC backed models is that your team can share in the upside on a more regular basis. You don't have to work 10 years and then hope you get an outcome, that's a binary outcome. You can actually get regular, cash flow to your team. So people don't need to wait as long to get, benefits, and you can see your team thriving and doing well. And
well, I would counter that Mercury is 7 years old and we've done like 2 tender offers for employees. So you can get like outcomes along the way as long as the founder, I guess, as long as the company's successful enough and the founder is like open to it. But I see your point. It is like maybe a slightly longer term. I have 3 counterpoints here. I think counterpoint number 1 is you were both successful and, you had like the financial kind of independence to go do this. And that's kind of true for Mercury. But when I started HeyZap, I had no money, and without like some funding, I guess you could seed funding at least, like there's just no way I would have been an entrepreneur. So I think there is like an element of, I guess you could do it later in life and save up enough money from having a normal job, but I was only 22 or something. That's question number 1. Is financial independence kind of required to do it like this way without VC funding, and or do you think like actually there is a way you can kind of bootstrap without like much financial independence?
It was required, a bunch of years ago when building a product costs a lot of money. But right before this, I literally recorded a video of building a social media app in 2 hours with Cursor AI, Replit, and Firebase. So I think as it gets cheaper and cheaper to build software, does it take a lot of money? Not anymore. Does it take time? Yes, it definitely takes time to craft distribution and build a product. But I think that it's no longer the case that you need to be like financially, you need a nest egg in order to start a cash flowing business.
But presumably you're a programmer.
I wouldn't consider myself a programmer, although I did go to school in computer science.
But like,
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you have to have a certain level of proficiency to work with these AI tools. I don't think it's like you just click the button and it's produced. Maybe it'll get better. I guess second point, and maybe I'll send this one to Raj. There is a set of companies that you just can't make money on for the first few years, like deep tech, highly regulated companies, or not even like something like Figma took like I think 3 years before they were making money. That's not even deep tech. That's, I guess you could consider that deep tech. But if you are excited about those spaces, or you know, they're obviously some of the biggest problems in the world are like deep tech or regulated spaces. So yeah, for that class of companies, like, is there any other choice but VC?
Yeah, I think there are a class of companies that VC makes a lot of sense for, or the most sense for, but I think it's much smaller than most people think. And so I think people are often like fed. Honestly, we just talked about content. I think a lot of founders are a little bit brainwashed by the content that's out there to taking VC dollars for companies that don't need it. Like SaaS companies, I don't think don't need VC dollars because you can build a product, as Greg said, much easier, and you can get a few customers. I mean, one problem with VC dollars is that it distracts you from focusing on customers. If you can get customers without even building a product. You can get cash flow without building a product. And you know, I've done this several times now where you can get people to sign contracts for a product that hasn't been built, and you can give them refunds if you don't build a product. But you know, I mean, for like a SaaS company, you know what, like the technical risk is very low. So you know.
Wait, why would someone like? Why? So you just show up and you've got a slide deck, and they're like, "Hey, I love this. Like, I'll pay $20K. Go make it." You tell them you haven't made it, or you tell them, "Hey, it's made," and we'll.
No, you tell them you haven't. You have you have a team that's ready to make it, and here's what it'll do. And if someone is not willing to sign a contract for $20K, like, do they even need it? Like, is it a big enough need? So I think it actually validates the thesis as well. And too many founders are focusing more on like raising venture dollars than actually talking to customers. And this is something that Y Combinator talks about. You got to talk to users, but I would even go further and say like get money from users before you build a product. Or
can you give me an example of like a product where you pre-sold it and like how did that pitch go? Like, what did you present at the pitch? And like, how many people was it? Like you spoke to hundreds to get there? Like, give me like a quick rundown of how it went down.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, we did this at Presto where, we actually got several $1 million up front, wow. For a product that we hadn't yet built, we knew the customers wanted it, we sold it to customers and we basically had the mock-ups for it. We had like, and this was kind of a combined hardware software product. And sight unseen, they were willing to sign a contract because, customers also realize that small companies don't have a ton of cash and other, if you're selling to a company, they do have cash. Even if you're selling to a consumer, they often have cash. I'll give you an example, Pebble, right? Pebble, the smartwatch company, got $10 million in pre-sales before they even built the watch. So, you can do a Kickstarter. And by the way, this is something Greg is really good at, is actually building community and getting customers before you build a product as well, right? Greg, maybe you should talk about that because I think it's really key insight.
A common question people ask me is like, okay, I want to build a minimal viable product. How do I do it? What do I do? And you remember when, you asked me about late checkout and the types of products we build and the businesses, you said, is there a particular theme that you guys are in or a particular market? And I said, not necessarily. It's just like the philosophy and framework. Well, the framework for how we build products is we call it the ACP funnel. So we start by building an audience. And then from there, we convert that into a community. And from that, we figure out what's the product and service that we can, to your point, pre-sell to them, get them excited, or if it's cheap enough to build, go and build it for them. My minimum viable product might be a tweet. And Paul Graham's minimal viable MVP might be a tweet too. Like the concept of founder mode could be the tweet. And there could be like a SaaS company called Founder Mode that is just
Let me go by foundermode.com.
right? No, but think about it. Like that whole concept of founder mode, ACP, that you can build a huge business around people who identify as founder mode. And how would I grow something like that? Well, I'd start with just tweeting about it, posting about it, getting people to follow at founder mode on Twitter. And then I would remarket the people that like founder mode or tweeted about it. I'd, buy Facebook ads. And then once I have a big enough list, then I'd be like, hey, and I'd show a beautiful, sexy landing page with like a video on it that's like kind of mysterious, and say like, hey, I'm selling 1,000 lifetime deals to the SaaS product for $199 or whatever it is. Do you want to be a first customer? And all of a sudden, like, you have a seed round, pre-seed round there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And customers.
Tesla does this too, right? Tesla gets like deposits from customers way in advance of like actually shipping a product, and they use that to finance their business, right?
What's the weirdest community you've built, Greg? Like the most unexpected type of thing?
The weirdest one was probably in COVID, like in April 2020. I built a community of barbers out of work, which
Oh, really?
yeah. Yeah, I was like, I don't know how it came up on my Reddit feed, but I just ended up, I don't know, I was in there and I got into the barber subreddit and I started creating this WhatsApp group to help them find work. And then I ended up creating, in like one day, I created something called You Probably Need a Haircut, which was a connected barbers with like girlfriends or boyfriends or wives or husbands to help them cut, like video teaching to teach people about cutting hair. And it went everywhere. It was on Good Morning America, like millions of visits within a short amount of time. So sometimes like I'll do stuff like, so some people have hobbies, like they like to golf, like I'll do that for a weekend.
Well, what a what a fun story. So you made money on that in the end?
I mean, probably made like a couple $100,000 in a pretty short amount of time.
So cool. One of the things I love about capitalism, and I feel like some people don't get it, is like the only way you make money is by giving value to people. On the whole, when you're making things like, before you have network effects and like monopoly or something like that, like you help these barbers, and sure you made some money out of it, but they hopefully got more value.
Totally. They made more than I made. We just took a cut, but it was cool. Yeah, I mean these people were like out of work too. They had no way of making any income.
Yeah. All right. So before we end, I'll make one other defense for VC-backed companies, which is, I think, if you have an unnatural desire just to make big companies and like feel like that would be a fun thing to do and are willing to grind, I think it's very hard to do it without being a VC-backed company, especially if you want to do it quickly. And I personally want to make the biggest company possible, and it's like actually not like driven by making money. I think there's probably easier ways to make money and an easier lifestyle I could have on the way. But I do think that is like the one, I guess, like hard to argue with thing that like if you just want to make it big and do it as quickly as possible, not for money, but like just to have like, I don't know, the broadest impact possible, I think you kind of have to do the VC route.
No, well, I think there's a counterpoint to that, whereas you can start off, kind of with organic financing with customers, kind of what I call it, organic financing, and you can raise VC capital if you're like, hey, this could be really big. If we put some more fuel on the fire, you have that optionality at any point. Yeah. So,
and there's actually some of the most successful companies have like delayed VC funding until they were like very successful, and a lot of the new IPOs, like, I mean, Atlassian, that was Klaviyo or whatever, raised very little VC. I do think there's something unhealthy to being always reliant on VC funding as well.
The other piece is your earlier rounds are going to give away the most amount of your company. So, if you could skip the pre-seed, seed A and go straight to B or C, that's huge.
So I think Greg actually opens like a window to a whole new way of working, like outside Silicon Valley, a whole new way of being successful in founding companies. He has a great podcast called the Startup Ideas Podcast. So I highly recommend checking that out. Greg, is there any other kind of unique insights? We talked about, this holding company model. We talked about the community model. Any other kind of unique insights you'd like to share, with the founders who are starting companies today? Like, hey, this is something unique about the way you do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at my model around holding companies, multiple businesses, cash flow, and they're like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. But it's not like we started off by having 5 companies at the same time. So you know that there's this trend around solopreneurship. You know, you have people like Peter Levels.io on Twitter, who has a bunch of different products. He's the same way. He started with one product and then it started to work and then started adding to the portfolio. So my feedback is always start as a solopreneur, start with one product, get it to the point where it's got product market fit. And once it's got product market fit, then you could decide what you want to do with it. Maybe raising venture financing is exciting to you and you want to go ahead and do that. And that's totally cool. Go and do that. Maybe putting in a CEO or GM and just having it, giving them some upside and having this thing throw off some cash is interesting to you. Go ahead and do that. Or maybe, and this happens to us all the time, where we have a product that we create that has a ton of traction, but for whatever reason, the market got way too competitive, or we're just not really excited about the product anymore, or we don't think that there's a huge moat. It's okay to shut down something that's quote unquote successful, to focus on something else. So that's just something I'd love to leave people with.
Where do you find these CEOs? Like, is there like a particular source or type of person that you think works great for taking over these companies?
My audience is where I find the CEOs, basically. Like the number one reason, like I don't have ads on my podcast, for example. But sometimes I'll do an ad for us that says, hey, we're trying to hire a CEO for this position. And it's a 30-second spot.
And what profile do you look for?
Someone who is like, I don't care if you've worked at Google or Amazon or whatever. I mean, that's a bonus, but I like someone who's proven that you create 0 to 1 products that hit some amount of scale. Ideally, it's someone who's, if we're hiring for, and let's say that SaaS business today is doing $2 million, we want to see that they've, built a business from 0 to 5 million or 6 million. Generally, it's not like 2 ahead. It doesn't need to be 200 million, but a little in front.
When you say built a business, you mean they were at the business and saw how it was done. You don't mean they were the CEO of that business.
Don't necessarily need to be CEO. In fact, oftentimes they're not the CEO. They were close to the CEO in some capacity. Either they're head of product, or chief operating officer or something like that.
Greg, I look forward to your essay about multiple modes of running companies.
Multi-mode.
That'll be in your content. Where can our audience find you?
I mean, if you like podcasts and you like ideas, Startup Ideas Podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and you can search my name, Greg Isenberg, on YouTube. And I also have a bunch of guides, founder guides, that people can check out at gregisenberg.com.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, man. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. This is fun. This is cool. Spicy, but I like it.
Yeah.
I don't think it was too spicy. Enjoyed this conversation. We'll be back next week. Make sure to kind of subscribe and review us on all the channels.
It matters. When you subscribe and you follow and you review, it actually really does matter. So if you're enjoying this and you're listening to this, please do it.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah. And I'll say 2 other things. I actually wrote an essay on organic versus inorganic financing. I haven't published it, actually, too broadly. I've just sent it to people who asked me questions about this. So we'll include a link to that in the show notes. And also, if you want, join our tribe group. We have some people on there already. And, we talk about the shows in advance. And you get to ask us questions as well.
Yep. See you there.